Good morning. 'Tis the season. No, I'm not talking about Christmas or Thanksgiving. It's election season, and it is upon us. Tomorrow, across the United States, we'll go to the polls and we will vote for our particular candidates. And do not worry, I am not here to try to convince you to vote for a particular party or a person or a position. I'm not worried today about tomorrow, Election Day. I'm worried about Wednesday. And I want to talk to you about how we as Christians should approach whatever the results are on Wednesday morning. There are three biblical principles that I think are critically important that we need to keep in mind regardless of outcome from the elections. Principle number one, whoever wins is chosen by God. In Romans chapter 13, verse 1, Paul says that very thing. He says, you're to be in subjection to the authorities because there is no authority in place that was not established by God. Now think about that. He was saying that about emperors who were ultimately going to put him to death. He's saying that about people like Hitler, Stalin, Putin. He's saying that about Trump or Biden. Whoever's elected was put in because God wanted him there. It isn't because of hanging chads. It isn't because there were ballots left in the mailboxes. It isn't because there's voting machine irregularities. Now, those things may be true, but ultimately the person who's elected is put there because God wanted them there. And we need to accept that. Number two principle, we are to be in subjection and to respect whoever is in power. In that same verse, in Romans 13, verse 1, Paul starts by saying, you are to be in subjection to the governing authorities. Peter says something very similar in 1 Peter 2:13. Submit yourself for the Lord's sake to the governing authorities. You see, whether we agree with their policies or their positions, whether they are godly men or ungodly women or men, it is our job to be respectful and in subjection. That means no ugly memes on Facebook, no nasty YouTube videos, not burning down police departments or storming Capitol buildings. As Christians, we are to be in subjection to those authorities. But wait a minute. That guy Peter who said that was a guy who in Acts 4 was standing before authorities when they told him, you can't speak anymore about this Jesus Christ. He said, I'm sorry. We can't help ourselves. We have to do it. So there are limits to this subjection. And what frames those limits? Well, that comes to principle number 3. Ultimately, as Christians, our citizenship is in heaven. Paul says that in Philippians chapter 3. He tells in another place that we are aliens and strangers on this earth. You see, ultimately, we answer to God. And God tells us through his writers that we are to be respectful and in subjection, and even to pray for those who are in authority. But if we are asked to go against what God wants us to do, then respectfully, we are to continue to follow God. Wednesday morning, ultimately, there will be a lot of people who are unhappy and a lot of people who are happy. That won't change. What should change is the way that we respond to that as people of God. So I have 3 asks of you for this week. Number 1, on Tuesday, please go and exercise your right to vote. Paul was very proud of his Roman citizenship, and he used it to his advantage whenever he could. We should be proud of our U.S. citizenship, and we should exercise its rights and responsibilities. So please go vote. But secondly, pray for the outcome, and pray for those who ultimately win, that they will make wise and godly decisions, that God's will be done. But third, live as a citizen of heaven, regardless of the outcome. Have a great week.